Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Hope you have enjoyed your lunch. We're going to start again. Yep. Let me know if you are back. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Danang. Thank you, Rahida. Any more? For those who are back, please let me know. Amir, are you there? Ishan? Okay, now, so we're going to move on with part 3. Part 3. Thank you, Isan. Okay, part 3 is actually about static with IP. Okay. So as you have already learned, right? In order to do DHCP and in order for DHCP to dynamically allocate IP address to the DHCP client, right? You have to create scope, you have to create range. Right? Create a scope defining the network for DHCP usage, and then define the range in the scope for the range of IP to be dynamically offered to the client. Isn't it? So you must have a scope and so forth. Now, as the recommended, the best practice is you manage the scope, you manage the range from IPAM. Turn on the integration from IPAM to DHCP. So to manage the range, to manage the scope, you do it from IPAM. You create subnet in IPAM. Then you will have a scope created in DHCP. You create a pool in IPAM. Then you will have a range created in DHCP. Okay, so that's what you already learned. And you try it out in the lab. Fine. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is static with IP. So when you assign an IP address with the client MAC address, okay, in IPAM, okay, you can make this IP address in IPAM replicated to DHCP as a static with IP. Right? Yeah. So you must provide the MAC address. You must. It's mandatory. Because you're going to reserve the IP address in DHCP for the MAC address. Okay? So that is static with IP. Right? So that when the client with the MAC address discover an IP, the DHCP server will always assign the reserved IP to the client. Okay, right? Good. Now, where can you create the static with IP? Where? You can create it in a scope. No? So you can see you have a scope. So you have two range in the scope. Example here, you have a laptop range, you have the desktop range, right? Yeah. So if you want to assign a static with IP, you can pick one of the IP address. There is, as I mentioned, right? We manage this from IPAM. We manage this from IPAM. But conceptually, it's the same thing. You can do it actually from DHCP, but the recommendation is you do it from IPAM. So if you go to IPAM, you have the subnet, and then you have two pools. isn't it? Oh, maybe this diagram. Oh, so you can see here, if you go to IPAM, you have a subnet 10.1.0. You have, oh, they don't show you two pool, but does not matter. You have a pool desktop. So the desktop range, the desktop pool, the range is from 101 to 149. Right? The laptop range is actually from 1 to 100. So you have two pool. So that's why you have two range. Do you realize that? Can follow? Yeah. So now what happened to the available IP in the subnet? You see? So you can see the two range only take up 150 IP address. The two range, if you add up, they only use up 150 IP address in the subnet. They have 254 IP address. See? So you still have a range of IP that are not used in the subnet. So if you look into the DHCP, you still have the IP address in the scope that are not used in the range. Isn't it? So this range of IP, this unused IP address in the scope, you can use it to assign static IP, static with IP. Right? So that's what they mentioned here. So you can take one of the unused IP address in the scope and you can set it for static with IP. Or you can go to the range. Remember, be careful. You have to go to the range that is not read-only. So for those range that is not read-only, I mean, not the range lah, of course. There's no such thing as no read for read-only for the range. Actually, it's the scope. Actually, it's the pool. Right? Remember, when you create a pool in a subnet, you can make it read-only or you can make it not read-only. So the desktop pool, which is 1 to 100, is a read-only pool. So you have a range for the laptop, and you also have a range for the desktop, right? After the replication. So you will be able to assign the IP in the range of the not read-only pool or as a static with IP. Because it's not read-only. Not read-only means you can assign the IP address in the pool. So when you assign the IP address in a not read-only pool, then you can replicate it as a static with IP. Okay, right? Yeah. So that's why you see this here. Fine. Now, for the range where the pool in IPAM is read-only, you cannot assign static with IP. You cannot, because it's read-only pool. Read-only pool, you cannot go and assign IP address. Fine. So when you enable the static with IP, so when you assign the IP address, and then when you make it replicate to DHCP as static with IP, you have another advanced property that you can set. Do you want to use the name? Do you want to assign a name to the static with IP? Assign the name. Okay, I will further explain that later on. So here the concept is you must understand, right? Where can you create static with IP? You can create static with IP, right? On a scope. You can create static with IP in a range, right? Where the pool, the IPAM pool is not read-only. Okay, right? So here is to show you how you can assign static with IP. Right? So as you can see here, this is in IPAM. This is in IPAM. Right? Yeah. And you are now in the Boston. You are now in Boston subnet. And then you are looking at all the IP address under Boston. Oh, and you can see you have IP address that is under the desktop pool. Desktop pool. Fine. the laptop pool, you can see in dim, right? Yeah, the laptop pool, there is no hyperlink. You can see there's no hyperlink for you to assign the IP address because this laptop pool is a read-only pool, right? So the desktop pool is not a read-only pool. That's why you have hyperlink for the IP address. So you will be able to assign IP address now. And you can make the IP, you can make the assigned IP as a static with IP in DHCP. Okay, so now, now you will be able to click on one of the IP address, or you can add your choice, right? So you can click on the plus sign, or you can click on the hyperlink if you can find the IP address. Then after that, this example, if you click on the hyperlink, you click on OK, right? Then you can see from here, right? You are going to assign a MAC address to the selected, I think they selected 101, you see that? And click on OK. So now you have this. So you're going to assign the MAC address. Or you can give a name, short name. Are you clear? So the short name is a name that you assign to the IP address, right? Yeah, and you can enforce that the name will be used for the client. Because in DHCP, right? In DHCP, the client can send the name to the DHCP server, and the DHCP server can use the client name. So there is a DHCP option for the DHCP client to send the client name to DHCP server, and the DHCP server can use the name of the client, right? But if you do not want to use the name from the client, okay, and you want to assign the name, you want to name the client using your assigned name, then when you assign the IP address in IPAM, you can give a short name. See, so this will be the name given to the DHCP client, right, with this MAC address. Oh, and it will be given this IP address. Are you clear? Yeah. Then after that, you must make sure you show the advanced property. You must make sure you show the advanced property, IPAM to DHCP, and you must click on Add DHCP static. So you're assigning IP address in IPAM, and you want to replicate this to DHCP as a static with IP. And then you want to enforce the name. See? Use IPAM name instead of the DHCP client name. So because you assign the name in IPAM to the IP address, so you want the IP address assigned, you want the name assigned to the IP address to be used as the name, right? Yeah. You do not want to use the name sent by the DHCP client when the client lists the IP. Right? So you can enforce it by selecting this checkbox. Okay? Right? Yeah. So here is to explain that. When you add a static IP, you can choose use IPAM name instead of DHCP server name. Instead of DHCP client name. So if you check, you are enforcing the client that lists the IP to use the name that you assign it in IPAM. Okay? Are you clear? Right? Now, if you uncheck it, then you will not be able to assign name. So when you assign the IP, you cannot assign the name. Right? Yeah. So you have to leave, the name will be empty. So when you uncheck this, when you uncheck here, use IPAM name instead of DHCP, when you uncheck that, you will not see the short name. You will not see the short name. You cannot enter the short name. So it means that there's no name given to the IP address when you assign the IP in IPAM, right? Yeah. when this IP address is replicated to DHCP as a static with IP, you will not see the name also. The name, right, will be actually provided when the client lists the IP and the client send the DHCP option client name. So the client will send his name when he lists the IP. And the name will be used for the IP address in IPAM. Right? So that is what they mean by unchecked. Clear that? Right? So once you have added the static with IP, right? And in this example, you enter the short name. You see that? You enter the MAC address. And you choose use IPAM name instead of DHCP. And you choose replicate to DHCP. So once you have done this, you click on OK, right? This will be the result. So in IPAM, you will see the IP address is assigned. Is that? You can see it's assigned with MAC address with the host name. And then this is DHCP static. Right? So it means that you know that this is a DHCP static with IP. So it's replicated as the DHCP static. Are you clear? Can follow? Right? Yeah. So that's what you see after you after you assign the IP address in IPAM. Then let's see what you have now in DHCP. So once the IP address is assigned in IPAM as what you see just now, yeah. Now, if you go to DHCP under the DHCP server, O static, right? Yeah, of the particular range, you see that so you can see under the scope Boston, under the range 110, 101 to 149, O static, select O static. Yeah, then you can see there is a static with IP. Okay, yeah. Oh, currently it's not listed. You can see last seen is none. Expired is none, means that the static with IP is not listed yet. It's not listed yet. Are you clear with that? Yeah, but the static with IP is already created. That's why, right? It's actually a non-MAC address with an assigned IP address, with a reserved IP address. Static with IP. Okay, this, right? Yeah. So that is the result after you assign the IP address IPAM, and then you replicate it to DHCP. Fine. So now is to show you before a list. If you go to the global search, or you search for this IP address 10.1.0.101, or you go to the global search, you search. Okay, you can see they will show you this IP address is actually found under US block IPAM. This is in IPAM, US block, Boston subnet under the pool desktop. And then this is the IP address assigned with this hostname. Oh, yeah. Okay. Now, and also this IP address is also found in DHCP under the scope Boston, under the range, right? And then a static entry, DHCP static. So this is before the list when you do a global search. So you can see the IP address in IPAM. You also can see the IP address in DHCP. Are you clear? Yeah, so you have a consistency of information before the list. Are you clear with that? And also I forgot to show you the name that you assign in IP, the name that you assign to the IP address in IPAM. You can see the name is also, right? The name is also used as a static with IP. Also, you can see here. See? So this is the name. In DHCP, is the same name. Oh, yeah. Right? Because you choose this. Use IPAM name instead of DHCP client name. Understand? Okay, fine. So now let's see what happened when there is a list now. So in DHCP, You see, under DHCP, Boston, the range, all lists. So now the list come in. I mean, now the IP address is list. So now you can see this IP address is listed from this time, and then it will expire on this time, right? And it's going to be expire in 57 minutes later. Okay, so the list is the IP is listed. And then if you go to IPAM now, under the desktop pool, all address, you can see now the status is in use for the IP address. And then you will be able to see the last seen and the expiration. Right? So this is a replication from DHCP to IPAM when the list is obtained. When the IP is the address is list. Okay? Clear? Now, if you perform a global search again after the IP is listed, right? So if you do a global search, you see the same thing. The IP is found in IPAM. The IP is found in DHCP. Now you have found the IP also under the DHCP list. So this is additional. Before and after. This is the after. After you see the list. So that's why the IP address appear under the DHCP list. And then you see the A record is created. The PTR record is created in DNS. Because you enable the replication from DHCP to DNS. So the A record is automatically created when the IP is listed, and the PTR record is automatically, right? Yeah, it's automatically available in DNS. So now you have a consistent information in IPAM, DHCP, DNS. Are you clear with this? Right? Okay, good. So now, when the client release the list, so when the list is released, see, now in IPAM, you can see it go back to reserve. No longer in use, it go back to reserve. And you will not see the list in DHCP. If the list, yeah, if the client release the IP. Any questions? Are you clear with this? Right? Static with IP. Oh. Fine. Now, you can add static with IP outside the range, as I mentioned. Just now, you can see we add static with IP inside the range. Oh, now, as I mentioned, you can also add static with IP outside the range, means in the scope. In the scope. Right? This is legacy, but hardly you use it. But sometimes you might give a special, sometimes you might want to reserve an IP for a special device, right? And if you want to reserve a special device, reserve an IP to a special device, right? That is outside the range, outside the DHCP range. See? Yeah? You might want to use the IP address. You might want to use those available IP address in the scope, right? For static with IP. Just like I want to reserve an IP address for the managing director, because there's a special firewall setting for the managing director. See? So I do not want to use the range of IP that is given to other client, because all the IP address, right, that's dynamically allocated to the client, they are blocked by the firewall, right? So any IP address that are within the range of the scope whether they are in the desktop scope or whether they are in the laptop scope. All this range of IP address, they are blocked by firewall. So now I don't want the IP address to be blocked by firewall. So I can take one of the IP address outside the range, which is in the scope, and reserve it for the managing director. See, so you can use it for some special case, right? Yeah, to avoid certain security policy, fine, or to define a special security policy for the special device, for the special person. Okay, understand? Yeah. So you can assign static with IP. So you can see you have two pool. One is the desktop pool, which is a range, right? Yeah. And then you have desktop pool, which is also a DHCP range, right? The range, you know, that is actually from 1 to 100, and then the other desktop is actually from 101 to 149. So you can see here, you have an IP address that is 152 being assigned, static with IP, DHCP static. And this IP address is not in any range. It's not in any DHCP range. So that is the IP address in the scope. So you can assign, you can click on it, and you can assign static with IP. Do you understand that? Right? Okay, fine. So it's the same result you see. So before the list, right? Before the list, when you search for the IP address, you can see it's in IPAM, right? And it's not in any pool. Look at that. So the IP address that you assign, 152, right? 152, if you do a global search before the list, you can see this IP address is in the US block in Boston, and they are not in any pool, not in any pool. See? And then if you look at the DHCP, in DHCP, it belongs to the Boston scope. And the IP don't belong to any range, no range. See? So you can see this is a special case. Understand, right? Yeah. Okay, good. So another thing for you to another thing to talk about here is don't worry about this slide. Okay. So when you add a static with IP, remember, yeah, you must enter the MAC address. See? Yeah. So the thing here they want to show you is you want to make a static, you want to assign this MAC address and to this reserved IP address, right? Yeah, so that's why you select this advanced property, create DHCP static, right? But you do not select use IPAM name instead of DHCP client name. So this advanced property is not selected. When this advanced property is not selected, you can see you cannot enter the name. So when you assign the IP address, right, you cannot provide a name. Right? You only need to provide the MAC address because of static with IP. See? So no name will be given when you assign the IP address for the static with IP. So that's a reason why the name, because you want the name to be assigned by the client when the client lists the IP. So that's why in IPAM, you cannot enter the name, the host name. What I mean is a host name. In the diagram, you can see they call it IP address name. You can't enter IP address name. See? Unless you check on it. Unless you check, then you can assign. Okay, this, right? Yeah. So you can see from here. So once the IP address is assigned, right? There's no name. No name. Have a MAC address. This is a static with IP. Currently is not in use, not listed. So this will be replicated to DHCP as a static entry. And you can see the IP address, the MAC address, and again, no name. So the name will be assigned by the DHCP client when the DHCP client lists the IP. Okay, understand? Yeah. So now is to show you, right? The IP address now is listed. So in IPAM, you can see in IPAM, when the IP address is listed in IPAM, you can see you have a name. Where does this name come from? This name come from the client. The client send the DHCP. The client send the name using the DHCP option. And you can see the IP address is in use now. And then you have a last thing. Okay? Now, this slide is to summarize what we have talked about in terms of the replication from IPAM to DHCP, and also from DHCP to IPAM. It summarizes everything in one slide. Okay? I'll try my best to explain it. Okay? Because it's just like we are now in part 1, part 2, part 3. It's just to talk about everything that we talk about from part 1, part 2, part 3 in one slide. Okay? Yeah. Anyway, let's see this. Okay, now you know that the integration from IPAM to DHCP, okay? When you create a subnet in IPAM, right? They will create a scope in DHCP. You understand that already, right? Now, in the subnet, in IPAM, in the subnet, you create a pool. So you create a desktop pool, isn't it? Right? And this is a not read-only pool. This is not a read-only pool. So when you create a pool in IPAM, you can actually replicate it to DHCP as a range. Are you clear with that? Right? Now, this is a non-read-only pool. So for a non-read-only pool, right? The range of IP in DHCP, because it's replicated to DHCP as a range, right? So the range of DHCP for the pool, or the range of IP address for the pool in DHCP can be dynamically listed to the client. And also you can create static with IP on the pool, on the IPAM pool. So you means that it support static with IP, right? It also support dynamic. So the client can list IP address dynamically from the range. And the range can have static with IP. Are you clear with that? Right? Now, in the IPAM, if you create a pool that is read-only, you can also replicate it to DHCP as a range, isn't it? But the read-only pool, when you replicate it to DHCP as a range, the range can only support dynamic IP, dynamic allocate IP. Are you clear with that? Right? You cannot assign static. No static with IP. So the IP address when from the range can be dynamically listed to the client, right? The list will be updated to IPAM, right? Because you replicate from DHCP to IPAM, right? So the list information will be updated in IPAM, IP address. Okay with this, right? Now you can outside the range, outside the pool. You see, outside the pool in the subnet, you can take one of the IP address in the subnet that is not used in any pool, and you can create a static with IP. See? So you can see this static with IP is created using an IP address in a subnet that is not in any pool. Isn't it? Yeah. So when you create this static with IP in IPAM, it replicates to DHCP. The IP address, the static with IP, right, will be in the range, in the scope. So this is the IP address, right, that is in the scope where you statically assign to the client. So you can assign a static with IP using the IP address in the scope. Understand? Okay. Now, you can create a pool in IPAM. So you can see example, you create a server pool and you do not want to replicate it to DHCP. Look at that. The server pool do not have a range because when you create the pool, you remove away the option push to DHCP. You remove that. Okay, so you can create a pool in IPAM that is not replicated to DHCP. Right now, using the pool that is not replicated to DHCP, you can also assign a static with IP from the pool. So you can take one of the IP address in a pool, the example here, the server pool, and you assign a static with IP. So the static with IP will be created in DHCP under the scope. So the IP address is under the scope. Okay? Yeah. Here is to show you, you also have a scenario. You can create a pool in IPAM that is not replicated to DHCP as a range, not replicated because you opt out, you don't do it, right? And you can also assign IP address in the pool that is not replicated to DHCP. Okay, so this is just to show you the different option for the replication. Okay, good. Any question? Fine, if you have no question, you can work on the lab. I give you 15 minutes, 15, to complete it. Okay? Yeah. So work on the lab.